Hello class. This week you guys are going to work with chapter 14. This chapter is about something that is called environmental health and toxicology. The environmental health is the science that tries to identify and study the different factors that can put in risk our health. Our health as an individual, but also as a member of a complete society or population all over the world. Toxicology are going to be some particular factors, normally chemical factors, that also are going to induce some kind of hazard in our health. And they're going to discuss that, or you guys are going to access that during the progress of this chapter. So, not only the identification of the factors is an important item in this type of study. Also, we need to understand what are the medium of transportation of those factors that can put in risk our health. Okay, what is the effect over the society, as we can see over here in this different type of figure, and how that type of factors, like the chemical ones, like the toxins, are going to be passed through the chain of food that we have in our planet to create accumulation of those toxins in those organisms that are bigger, like for instance the ones that you can see here in this bald eagle. Okay, why this is important? Well, we just were struck by one of the most strong pandemic situation that we have experiment in the last few centuries of the planet, which is the COVID, okay? This type of infection disease had created a lot of challenges in our society, and today the toll of life that was taken by this infection disease, we recognize that has been very high. Actually, in this type of statistics that is coming from one of the association about the health, which is the World Health Association or organization, that is the name of WHO, okay? You can see here that the back in 2021, the amount of people dead in the United States compared to the toll of people that was taken by this infection disease was almost 25%, which is a lot. So that's why this type of hazards that we have for our health is something that needs to be taken into account, because that is going to affect not only the environment, the people, but also the progress of our humanity. As I mentioned before, we are going to describe the movement of those toxins from one organism to another, or the transportation all over the world, or the transportation in the biological scale of the living species. Okay, that is something that we are going to address in this chapter. That's what is called bioaccumulation or biomagnification, and you guys are going to work with that type of concepts. They introduced in the textbook this case of the bisphenol A. Bisphenol A was a chemical product that was used to manufacture different types of plastic containers, but also was used in the manufacturing of the canned food. So it's normally or was normally used to create the sealing of the canned food. Well, what they found within the time, when I say they, I mean the scientific community, what they find out within the time is that the bisphenol A is a disruptor at the chromosomal level. Okay? And that creates a lot of issues within the organisms of the humans. So that's why it's an important file that should be taken into account, and that's why in your textbook you have this one as an introduction. But this is a type of chemical hazard that we have in our environment. Of course, this is a natural chemical product that is in our environment, but it's used by humans to manufacture products. So we have really this combination of different types of hazard. Some of them are natural and some other ones are anthropogenic, or the final dangerous effect is because a combination of both of them, like the one that I present. Other one is the asbestos. The asbestos, today we know that that chemical product is very dangerous for the lungs because they produce a type of cancer that damage the lungs or the respiratory system in our organism. Well, the asbestos is a chemical product but has been used in the construction of different type of housing or offices or building. So there is a combination of a natural origin but also an anthropogenic use of that products. There are different type of factors, health hazard, but one that is going to be taken into account during the progress of this lecture is going to be the ones that is the biological hazards. And biological hazards are very important because most of them are very close related with the infection disease. Now, there is something particular in the infection disease that take place in our environment, that normally the infection disease is created by a virus or bacteria. The virus or bacteria, they going to choose a host, and within the host, that is normally the people, okay, they develop over there and they grow over there. Now, in order to the virus of the bacteria get into the host, they need a media of transportation. Sometimes that medium of transportation are other type of organisms, and those type of media, they are normally called vectors. For instance, as the one that you see here, that one is a picture of a mosquito. So mosquito might carry the virus of some infection disease like the salmonella, for instance, or malaria or something like that. But in some other situation, the vector doesn't exist as an organism, but is part of the media that we have in our planet, like the one that we experiment with COVID-19. What was the vector? Well, we didn't have a vector. Really, what we have was a media of transportation that is the air that we have in the lower part of the atmosphere, okay? And that is triggered by the breathing of the people. So those ones are very dangerous because there is no way that you can fight the media of transportation that is the air, neither the people who are the guys that are breathing. Okay, so that is basically part of the problem. But in any case, when the virus or the bacteria is inside the host, what is normally happening is that they are going to grow and reproduce offsprings, and those offsprings needs to be expelled to themselves reproduce and propagate. That's why we sneeze, we cough, okay? Or sometimes we excrete, like diarrhea or something like that. So that is one of the mechanisms that we have for the spreading of this infection disease. Now, one of the important things that we need to take into account is that even though the infection disease in terms of people that they attack or they affect is lower compared to the amount of people that dies because of another type of disease that are no infection disease, like the cardiovascular disease or cancers, okay? What happens is that infection disease becomes very, very dangerous because they strike all the ages in the population. They might strike the old people, but also they can strike the youngest generations or the younger people. So they don't discriminate between the age. So this is one of the major problems and challenges with the infection disease. That's what is called in environmental health the years of life. Why? Because most of infection disease, they attack not only older people but also young people, and then they are taking from our society, from the world, they are taking the new years of life from our society, which is the people that we need to sustain the life of the human species and also to sustain the life of the planet. That is one of the problems with the infectious disease. The other thing that you guys are going to review has to do with the part of the toxins. Normally the toxins are created by chemical factors, and this is something that you are going to find in the second half all of this chapter. And together with the toxins, they're gonna talk about the field that made the study about the toxins, or the science that made the study about the toxins, which is toxicology. Okay? So you are going to be exposed to concepts like toxicity, which is the strength of the toxins or the strength of the toxicant. Okay? And then you will be exposed also to these types, and let me look for here ahead in this video, to these types of graphics that have to do with the dosage response. Okay, so in here, in this type of graphics, you will find concepts like the LD50. What is going to be the LD50? It's going to be the amount of concentration that you need from some typical toxin or toxicant or poisonous factor to kill 50% of the population that you are observing or you are analyzing or you are studying. Okay? So if this number is low, then the toxicity of that poison is very high. But if this number is very high, the toxicity of that poison is going to be lower. So, and you will see different type of responses. Those are the graph in which in this chapter you are going to supposed to be working with. For instance, you may have this one in which you have a range in which the concentration of that toxin really doesn't make any major effect in the person or in the animal or in the species or population in which that toxin is working in. Because the body or the tissue of those members are going to be able to metabolize that toxin or to excrete that toxin. But beneath that threshold range, then you will see that there is an effect over the population. Of course, adverse effect, it's going to be harmful for the population. There are some other response in which the LD50 is at a very slow concentration, but when the immune system of the population start to learning how to fight that toxin, then for larger concentrations, the effect is not going to be very high. So those responses might be very complex. So you, in your Master and Environmental Science exercise, you're going to see some of them. There are very important discussions that you will be able to see with some chemical toxins. For instance, the pesticides, one that is very famous, that is the DDT. And let me look for that one over here. That refers to a very big research work that was conducted by a person in the last century, Rachel Carson. And Rachel Carson, she wrote a book that was called The Silent Spring, and that was published to the whole society, in which she described how this pesticide DDT was dangerous for the environment, for a lot of species in our planet, but also for humans. Okay? And after a series of discussions in our society, in the scientific communities that have to do with the manufacturing of this pesticide and the federal laws, after many years, at the end of the 70s, very beginning of the 80s, United States took the decision to ban this type of pesticides. Okay, so, and there is a very famous sentence from that book that reads as follows: "And the following spring are sailing from robin songs," because she found that the DDT in a very high concentration kills those robin birds that we can find in the central part of United States. Okay? In the towns of the central part of United States. And why the central part of United States? Because that is an area in which the agricultural activity is so high. So for many years, people use the DDT as the pesticides, and that create a very harmful effect in our environment. So you're going to see cases like this, there are videos over there. And also, there is another that has to do with another factor of toxin that is a chemical, but another type of chemical toxin. In this case, the mercury, the high accumulation of mercury in fresh water. And that is one case in here that was back at the very beginning of the last century in Minamata Bay, that is in Japan. Okay, so there is a history case over there that was very, very traumatic in that case. Okay, and there is here a video that you're gonna be able to also watch in this chapter. Well, guys, I hope you enjoy this chapter. It's very interesting. There are a lot of videos, okay? And also remember that this week, you guys are going to have a board discussion, okay? So that is going to be the first board discussion that will be due next week. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.